Hi, this is Eric Martin with BoardGameGeek. I am joined by Shweta and Falcon from Dice Toy Labs.
Yes.
They're up very early in the morning, joining us to look at Indus 2500 BCE. I know
Correct.
very little about this game. It's a roll and write game, and beyond that, I know nothing. So I'm hoping the two of you can lead us
That's
through
fantastic.
an introduction of the game.
Yeah, Eric, honestly, we are really grateful to be a part of this, showing and demoing our, this game is getting really popular right now. And Indus is a game which takes you back, way back, like 2500 BCE. So this was one of the first civilizations, that formed the entire subcontinent of India because of the river Indus, right? India comes from the river Indus. So
Yes.
we were playing, a lot of games, deck building games like Seven Wonders and Solkin and all of these. And I'm thinking, hey, wait a second. We need to make a game based on Indus, the civilization. So let's make a game. And then I just posted on one of our, so we have the small board game design group, all Indian designers. And I just posted saying, hey, why haven't we made anything based on Indus? And one thing led to the other. The designer, Amit Gadge, he couldn't sleep for 3 days after it was triggered. So he had visited one of the civilization, one of the cities, and he was just completely intrigued with, so much of things like architecture and the design of the cities. And it was crazy, right? And then calls me during the pandemic and is like, hey, I have this idea. And I'm like, I have this idea too. So we shared and voila. So
right.
Indus is a beautiful, beautiful game. It's a flip and write game. So you're building a civilization, one of the cities. Yeah, it's a flip and write game. So you're primarily building a city, hoping that it doesn't get destroyed during a calamity, because we've read in school that the Indus Valley civilization was hit with every possible calamity out there, right? It could be an earthquake, it could be a flood, it could be a drought, it could be, just plague. So we were like, okay, this is perfect. So what if during the play you're building a beautiful, flourishing city and you get hit by a calamity, right? So you're like, oh man, I have to cross out this building, cross out this terrain, cross out all of these things. And then what if we give the players a second chance to rebuild the city, right? So that was the whole story behind the game, and the game mechanisms just fell into place. It's just beautiful. So Shweta is going to unbox the game and show you how we set up the entire game. It's a pretty quick setup.
Okay.
A lot of people thought it's going to be a pretty complex game, but surprisingly, once they started playing, they couldn't stop it. So we actually give. So this is the rule book. It's just an 8-page rule book. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the most interesting part of the game, right? This is the map. So this is your city map. This booklet comes with two sides. You have an A side and a B side. So the B side is slightly more complex. And once you finish a particular city, you can store it, and you can actually play with the same sheet the second time. So just to give you an idea, you'll actually see the index on the right side of the map, which are all the different terrains that are there. So like houses and canals. So Indus was known for the water canals and reservoirs and a citadel. So it's beautiful. Every city that you see in the Indus Valley civilization, there's a hill and there's a citadel on the top. So this citadel always had a priest king. So that's what we've heard about. I mean, it's not very well documented like the other civilizations, because the script is still, nobody has decoded it. So, we try to make up whatever is available for us, right, for the game. So you'll see what are the different resources you need to build a bathhouse or a reservoir or a granary in the city. And the most interesting part about this game is there is unlimited options for scoring, replayability, variability in play. and we'll show you why. So as you can see, there are so many boxes for scoring, right? So you could be earning victory points, yeah, and you will never know what the other player might have scored. So that's the best part.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, in the
Okay.
Indus Valley civilization, there was always a higher level and a lower level. So we, kind of brought that in place because you cannot draw terrains which are overlapping on both the levels.
Yeah, I think the B side as well, the terrain is slightly different. So you see the higher level in the center area.
Yeah, it makes it very
much more
complex.
challenging to draw now.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next thing that you will notice are the terrain cards. Yep. So the terrain cards actually have multiple purposes. You can use them as the terrain side. So the terrain side has houses and like farms and things like that. And some of them
Okay.
actually give you a wall, which gives you can actually protect that particular terrain from a calamity. So it protects you from
Okay.
a few calamities, like a flood or something like that. The wall stops it right away, and it gives you options and things that are easy to draw kind of patterns. And on the other side, you will notice these different artifacts and other resources like the stone and the brick and stuff like that. So the artifacts were, you might have noticed some of the seals and things like that. This is just a beautiful, beautiful seal, right? I mean, they had seals which was used during trade at that time. So we introduced trading as well between players, right? I mean,
Okay.
if a player has an extra brick and I want a brick, I can exchange with an artifact, or I could negotiate a lot more if it depends on my skills. So
Okay.
yeah, it's very interesting. You can either collect artifacts, score victory points. You could use your resource side and actually build beautiful, bathhouses and things like that. Again, there are rules where you can build some of the special structures, and there is no limit to how many you can build. And at the same time, your pattern. There are scoring cards. So these
So
scoring cards add the variability.
let me interrupt it for a
Yeah, tell
moment
me,
here.
Ali.
So what's the nature of a turn? Are we each
All right.
drawing the same thing, or how do we decide which side of the card we want to use, the terrain or the artifact or
Yeah.
the
So
item,
what
things like that?
happens is the cards would be like, this is the market area, right? Can you see the market area? All right. There you go.
Yes.
So depending on the number of players, that many cards would be open. Like assume it's a two-player. By the way, it allows for solo play as well. So
Okay.
assume that three players are playing, right? So this is the market area, and you have to replenish it every time you use it. And in one particular turn, the first player, this is the first player marker that we made. So the first player can either go for this card, which gives him a brick, or he can go for a terrain card. All right. He
Okay.
cannot take a terrain card and flip it over and say, hey, I'm going to use the artifact. That's a rule. You can't
Okay.
use that. Or you can't take this and say, I'm going to flip it over and do this, the terrain side. Yeah. So,
Yeah, let's just tell them about the initial player setup also.
yeah. So at the start of the game, every player has their own city card. Again, based on which side you're playing, in case you're playing the A side or the B side, you choose the A side, and this particular card, it tells you, this is like the initial setup in your map where the river is flowing and where the other terrains like a mountain, and, because there could be a landslide, you'd never know. And what happens is, why would you take a particular terrain and put it next to a particular structure, right? I mean, you must be wondering that. So you can maximize your score by seeing what is it that is going to give you an awesome score at the end of the game. So it could be what we've done is things like this is my favorite, by the way. So it gives you 3 victory points for every canal that's connecting a reservoir and a river, right? So you can
Okay.
actually build multiple channels going to the same river and the same reservoir, or build multiple reservoirs, and you can score like, okay, why am I giving out tips on how to score? Well, all right. So it's really, really interesting. You're trying to figure out, okay, do I maximize the special structures? Do I maximize this? So the scorecards really set the direction for the entire game. And we have
Okay.
seen people really take it to the next level.
Okay. And so you're going to take one of the cards and then make it the terrain that's shown on the top. So it's the grass or the forest, or you got canals or what the other one is. And then take turns going around the table, filling our area. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So this game goes turn by turn. And then the first player marker moves from player to player. Why is there a first player marker? The reason there's a first player marker is because the first player gets a lot of choice, right? I mean, the market is fresh and you can choose whatever terrain card, whatever. And sometimes people will be fighting for these cards, the resource side, which really helps in building the special structures.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
So this
and the end of the game
is what makes it even more interesting. Tell me, Eric.
Okay. Oh, I was going to ask what triggers the end of the game. I guess you got a little bit more.
Right. So each deck at the start of the game, you have to pick 2 calamity cards and mix it up. So there is a way how you do it. Like you split it into 4 parts and then, put a calamity card in the last 2 parts and then you join it together. That's the starting setup of the game. And the first time the calamity card hits you, you have to resolve it. All right. And the game ends the second time a calamity card hits you. You stop right there, resolve the calamity card, and start scoring. Right now, you might be asking what are the types of calamities that can happen. Right. So this is how a calamity can happen. So it could be an earthquake, and these are the nicer ones which Shweta is showing. Yeah. So this is a flood. So this particular card. Basically, you'll have to cross out one of the rivers in your city, and you might have built a lot of canals connecting this to a reservoir, or it could be anything, right? And then this thing comes and it completely destroys your city, right? And but what really protects you is the wall.
Okay, so we can tell them about the
wall. Right. So the wall is important. There are these gaps between the squares. That is where you put the wall. And the wall stops the flood or stops the landslide from continuing forward, but it does not protect you from plague.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you know the calamities ahead of time, or are they just randomized?
No,
don't
you
know
will
which
not know.
two will be in there?
We pick them blind and put them into the deck.
Yes. Okay. All right.
So that's how the game is played.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much. It's great to have you join us for overview of Indus 2500 BCE. I had people asking, how would they get copies? Is this out now? And do you have distribution?
So I'm glad. I mean, so we didn't really anticipate this game getting so popular outside India, thanks to BoardGameGeek, which propelled that part of it. The moment we put the game on BoardGameGeek, we got a lot of interest from really popular reviewers and bloggers and things like that. And we were like, wait a second, is it our game which is good? So we were like, okay. Immediately, we got the safety testing done, all the certificates, whatever we need to ship it out to US, ship it out to European Union, and luckily, our games have reached the American shores right now. And they've reached the Amazon warehouse. It's just in the small formality of it getting checked in. Yeah. Okay. So that's going to be a continuous flow of games from now on. Along with this, we are planning to launch a lot more new games, in not just in India, but we'll be launching it across the world very soon.